Time be going by quick. Put on something comfortable and slipped under the covers once I got home. There I stared at the ceiling as I mulled over my thoughts. Tomorrow I'd be paying a visit to Hinagami Pharmaceuticals, the same company Yaginuma was looking into. While I didn't know what he was investigating, I had to ensure I didn't get in his way. Though honestly, it was only inevitable that our paths would converge as they had now. However, since Yaginuma had learned that Mizuki Itose's father was a former employee of Hinagami Pharmaceuticals, he was probably looking into them and their connection to the Blessed Congregation. Neither of them seemed to be linked on the surface, that said. While it was hard to imagine that a pharmaceutical company and a religious organization could have anything in common, it was a different story with the Shigasas thrown into the mix. The Shigasa had started up the Blessed Congregation's predecessor, while his relatives, the Hinagamis, ran Hinagami Pharmaceuticals. Thus, there was always the chance that they had some sort of arrangement. After all, even Naori Kuroya, another one of the Hinagami's relatives, was working for the Blessed Congregation. Come to think of it, the Kuroyas had mentioned that Naori's first job involved working at a Hinagami Pharmaceuticals lab, that he then moved on over to some orphanage whose name escaped me at that moment. That orphanage was affiliated with the Blessed Congregation. All roads led back to Hinagami Pharmaceuticals. Couldn't stop thinking about it. I got up with a grunt. Just hit me that I'd forgotten to do something. While I'd planned on giving the job to Masaki, I could probably do it myself now that I no longer had to go through Yaginuma. Yukari was listening to the radio in the living room.
Yukari, 電話使うぞ。
わかりました。
Yukari turned down the radio. For sure I looked up their number at some point. I flipped through my notebook until I found the Kuroya Clinic's number. Not calling too late, am I? Nah, I should still be fine. Probably. Picked up the receiver and dialed the number after dismissing that concern.
もしもし、黒谷委員ですが。
夜分遅くに失礼いたします。私、先日お尋ねした探偵の時坂と申しますが。
ああ、どうかしましたか？
お願いがありまして、渋酒と雛神家の人間の血液型が知りたいのです。
Hear the vigilance rising in Yuzura's voice even over the phone.
とある身元不明の遺体を調べておりまして、どうも両家に関わっている方の可能性が浮上しているそうでして。
山の中で発見された。
知っていましたか？
No point in beating around the bush then.
うちで簡易的な鑑識はしていましたから。県警の鑑識係が担当して、自分は見てもいませんが。
こちらの捜査本部も興味があるようで。ぜひ関係者の血液型と比較したいと。
I bluffed using the police's name as a shield, even though I knew Yaginuma would have my ass if he ever found out.
わかりました。渋酒と雛神家だけでいいんですね。
Ultimately, though, Yuzuru ended up giving in almost disappointingly easily.
ありがとうございます。できれば個人のものもあればありがたいのですが。
健康診断などの記録が残っていますから。よほど古いものでなければ。
いえ、こちらの住所に送っていただけると。
Give him my home address. Forget my ass. Yaginuma would have my head if those records ended up falling into his hands instead.
この時期は郵便だといつ届くかわかりませんから、電信で送りますよ。
重ね重ねすみません。よろしくお願いいたします。
I almost forgot my other order of business with him.
まだ何か？
直りくんのことなんですが、雛神製薬の研究室にいたと以前伺いましたが。
前に話した通り。
Is that true, or is he just playing dumb?
ではその後、養護施設で働いていたとも言ってましたが。
白百合の園という名前しか知りませんが。
そうですか。
では、これで失礼。
Ugh. Things are finally picking up steam.
お茶飲まれますか？
そうだな。もらおうか。
はい、どうぞ。
Yukari promptly served me tea so hot that she must have made it just before she'd asked.
ありがとな。
I blew on the tea as I slowly sipped
あ
it.
れ、お前の授業を開始って週明けからか？
ええ、そうですよ。明日明後日には小羽が休み中の課題を移させてくれと頼みに来るでしょうね。
Kill her. Just kill her. Listen, I'm not, trying to advocate for anything. I'm just saying, if they wanted to consider Kohane as a potential bridal candidate, I'd be okay with that anyway.
課題ってのは自分の力でやるものじゃないのか。
提出していないという話ではありませんよね。
さてと、俺はまだすることがあるから部屋に戻るぞ。
Man, I never copied anything. But you didn't just turn in blank assignments, did you? Anyway, I've got work, so... I got up without answering Yukari's question. Just to be clear, she hadn't hit the nail on the head. No, absolutely not. I slipped back into my futon after returning to my room. I'd done just about all I could for the time being. Everything else depended on my meeting with Shizuru Hinagami tomorrow. After that, I'd pay Kichiki Hospital a visit. According to Fumiya, they had ties with Hinagami Pharmaceuticals since their grandfather's time. Hell, I'd even seen Karen Hinagami there a few weeks back. So hopefully I can get some information regarding the company's reputation from them. That said, the Kichikis were family to the Hinagamis, so I would probably be best off questioning only Koharu. Then again, I doubt the company would have let any scandals reach their business partners' ears. Okay, now that my plans for tomorrow are all set in stone, I better go straight to bed. Got an early morning tomorrow after all. Just hope it doesn't snow. The rattle of an air-cooled engine resounded across the snow-sprinkled road.
車で行くんですか
Masaki's face went as pale as his breath once he exited the agency and saw my car out
こ
front.
こから四谷だったらすぐだし、少しくらい雪が積もっていたって事故ることはないだろう。
歩いて行っていいですか
いいわけないだろう。
I shoved Masaki into the passenger seat.
後ろにエンジンが乗っかってるから雪道でも滑りにくいんだよ。
滑りにくいのと滑らないのはまるで違いますよ。
ここに来るまでだって事故ってないし。
事故らなければいいって問題じゃありませんよ。
I ignored Masaki's caterwauling and hopped into the driver's seat and took off. Arrived at Hinagami Pharmaceuticals' Tokyo headquarters no time
な
flat.
事故らなかっただろ。
だから何事もなかったかのように言うのはやめてくださいって。
どこにもぶつけていないからいいだろう。
都電のレールの上で滑って一回転したのは事故だと思うんですが。
あれはさすがにびっくりしたな。俺の華麗なハンドルさばきがなければ大事故にな
My
っていた
Grand
ぞ。
Prix class steering.
周りがみんな避けてくれただけじゃないですか。
細かいことは気にするなよ。緊張も解けただろ。
別の意味で緊張してましたよ。
We advanced in front of the entrance until the doors opened, revealing Karen Hinagami.
会社の前で立ち話をするのはやめていただきたいのですが。
彼、おはよう。
おはようございます、兄様。それと時坂さんですね。
本日はよろしくお願いします。
こちらこそですが、その前にお車を裏の駐車場に移動していただけますか。
あ、はい。
I had no choice but to agree, now when she was clearly all business anyway.
ではこちらでお待ちください。
Karen escorted us to the reception room before leaving us be.
随分と綺麗な建物。
儲かっているみたいですね。
今からでも後継者に名乗りを上げたらどうだ。
薬屋の知識なんて何もないから無理ですよ。
今からでも知識を身につけろよ。
は
Yeah, guess I should have known that'd be a long shot. Suddenly Karen returned.
お待たせいたしました。
I rose to my feet once I saw the man entering behind Karen.
ひながみしずるさんですね。
Yeah? He glanced at Masaki before taking a seat on the opposite sofa.
あまり時間がないのでな。手短に頼む。
Shizuru shot Karen a look, prompting her to bow and leave the
お
room.
話の前に
I surreptitiously indicated Masaki was keeping his head down to the stone-faced Shizuru.
生きていることは知っていた。
別にこちらも感動の再会なんてものを望む。
I didn't want to strike a bad first impression with him, but I just had to get that off my chest.
俺はあまり家にいなかったからな。
あ、そりゃあなたは家よりも仕事の方が大事でしょうよ。
Masaki finally spoke up.
それは違う、綾人。
Shizuru focused on his son for the first time since this had begun.
ひながみにとって家は何よりも優先しなくてはならないものだ。規模こそ大きくなってしまったが、制約も元は家業でしかないのだからな。
だから俺の生存を確認してすぐに後を継がせようと。
So in other words, the reins they really wanted to hand him were those of the Hinagami family itself, not Hinagami Pharmaceuticals. Ayato and Karen were Shizuru's only children, meaning his candidates were quite limited. Still, I didn't see why Karen couldn't simply take over as long as she found a man willing to marry into the family.
カレンが子供を産めないという話は聞きました。
And with that question, was it that important to them that their patriarch's bloodline persisted? In that case, Naoto Kuroya, Shizuru's own nephew, would have worked just as well. Though then again, it was probably impossible to bring the son of someone who'd married into another family back into their fold.
結婚の話を進めているのは親父とおふくろだ。年寄り連中はどうしてもひな神の血が絶えることを良しとしないらしい。
じいさんからはあんたに任せてあると聞いた。
こちらでやったことは候補者の選定だけだ。嫁を取らすことを初めに言い出したのは親父だ。
So you say, like, I got nothing to do with them, like, wanting you to get married, right? It's all their idea, it's all their plans. I'm just playing along with it. And maybe he doesn't want to? So it seems like Shizuru's not worried about the traditions, right? So is he setting up these marriage candidates? Is he actually in on whatever's going on with Nanako and Karen, setting this up so that they do get killed, and then in that way, once, the elder Hinagami's kicked the bucket, he can pass it off onto Karen? He then can pass the title off, be like, yep, you're the successor now. Now that the elders aren't here to, what's the word I'm looking for? Object. We can pass it on. Is that what's going on here?
確かに秀臣さんは候補者を決めていたのはしずるさんだと言っていました。
Chimed in once the subject of the candidates came up.
ならばご存知ですよね。候補者が次々と殺されていることについて。
承知している。
Shizuru's face darkened for a moment.
なぜ彼女たちが殺害されたのか。
わからない。まだ正式に打診していないものも含まれていた。
So you got a mole.
それは誰ですか？
糸瀬かなえの娘、水木と言ったが、彼女にはまだ話を通していなかった。
何らかの形で候補者が犯人側に漏れたとしか思えませんね。
その通りだ。
Shizuru nodded.
漏れる可能性で考えられることはありますか？例えば秀臣さんとの電話を盗聴されていたり。
父と話をするときは必ず向こうに出向いて直接話をしている。候補を一本化して話を持っていくときに初めて人に話している。
それを最初に聞かされたのは
彼女が最初にそれを見つけたからな。
Shizuru glanced at Masaki.
彼が入院していた病院に上園真由さんがいたことは偶然ですか？
偶然だ。もちろん話を通しやすいと考えて一本化したのは確かだが。
Masaki clenched his hands into fists. Sure as hell can't be easy on him.
外に出ているか？
いいえ。
Shook his head despite the downcast look on his face.
桐村由香さんは候補になっていなかったと聞いています。
わからない。彼女はよく働いてくれていたのだが。
Shizuru frowned sadly, his face mirroring his son's. Seemed he really didn't have any clue. It could have just been an act, of course.
なぜ桐村さんは候補ではなかったのですか？
Shizuru held his tongue, not daring to utter another word. It's like there really was a clear set of criteria for being a candidate, just as I'd suspected. One that he felt had to be kept secret. However, that only made it curiouser and curiouser as to why Yuka Kirimura had been murdered. Maybe the culprit hadn't known the secret criteria and thus killed her without realizing she didn't fit them. That's exactly what happened. But if that were the case, then why had they even assumed Yuka was one of the candidates to begin with? That is the question. Hitogata was a small place. It was home to two of the candidates, Megari Takamiya and Yu Hutami. So maybe the murderer simply assumed women in that age group were the candidates and killed them. I wanted to question Shizuru on the subject further, but unfortunately I wasn't with the police or anything. Plus I couldn't risk him calling off the whole meeting because I was riding his ass.
俺は
Masaki, probably unable to bear the silence any longer, finally spoke up.
俺じゃなく親父に言え。
あの状態を見たら言えるわけないじゃないですか。
ならばしばらく待てばいい。そう長くないことは本人も
Yeah,
自覚して
see,
いる。
that's the thing. At least on the outside, what he's telling us anyway is that it's like he's waiting for him to kick the bucket so that he can say, yo, fuck it to these traditions.
薬を処方したりはしていないのですか？
できる限りのことは手配している。しかし全身に転移した悪性腫瘍に効く薬なんてものは。
Terminal cancer, huh? Pretty advanced too, from the sounds of it.
今後彼の結婚話はどうなりますか？
実際のところ止めざるを得ないだろう。こうも候補者が殺されているのならば
Shizuru readily admitted defeat, which was in stark contrast to what he told his son. However, we couldn't afford to let our guards down. Sure, Shizuru had stopped, but that didn't mean the killer would.
二見優以外に候補となっている方はいますか？
いると言って差し支えないだろう。
Ooh. Okay. He won't tell me the name, obviously, but there's one other. There is another. Oh. Could it be? Who could it be? Surely they'd want someone in Masaki's age range, right? That's kind of been the pattern here. Because the only other one I could think of that, like, yo, he talks to on a regular basis and is very, like, yo, nice around would be Yukari, is like one that immediately comes to mind, but she's definitely not in that age range. Though, you know, for someone like Reiji, that doesn't matter. Anyway, well, if we try to think within his age range, someone who's not infertile, so we can cross Nanako off the list for sure. That, well, if I am correct in my body double theory for Satsuki, if Shizuru knows what happened to the real Satsuki, potentially, maybe that's the one they have in mind that we wouldn't know about. Shizuru entered reluctantly before producing a piece of paper. Oh, he's just gonna show us. Never mind.
悪いな。子供の頃から悪筆は治らなかったんだよ。
He headed me off before I could comment on that exact point. First two names were probably you and Meguri.
上園椿というのは？
上園真由の母親だ。その後も母親の名前だけが判明していた。
Okay. So you and Meguri, obviously he knew because they were his son's close friends. The other ones he'd only know.
候補者本人よりも先に。
そうなるな。
Okay, so it's someone that Shizuru would know. Someone that he would know. Well, it very well could be someone that we don't even know is connected to all this. Said earlier that Kanai Itose was Misaki Itose's
で
mother.
は、この最後の方も。
According to the name, they read Midori Yoshino. Yoshino.
母親の名前だけだ。ほぼ手を尽くして調べたが、娘の名前はまだ分かっていない。
Yukiko? Is it Yukiko? Because the only other because if we think of someone who's adopted, right? He can't find her daughter, which would probably mean that the biological daughter's been adopted, would be my assumption.
娘がいるのは確かなんですか？
ああ、そう聞いている。
It's Yukiko? I'm thinking it's Yukiko. Yoshino. Because, yeah, the name doesn't ring any bells. So my mind wants me to think Yukiko, but Yukiko is a lot younger, is the thing. That's definitely not someone in Masaki's age range. Do we know anyone else that has been adopted? Knowing the mother's names but not the actual candidates? How is that possible? Whatever the reason, sound like a clue about the criteria for selecting candidates.
この紙、他の方に見せたことは？
今が初めてだ。いや、親父には見せたか。
Does he trust me? Or is he just that confident that no one will ever find the last candidate?
この紙をお預かりしてもよろしいですか？
ああ、ただしくれぐれも他言は無用に願う。
それはこちらからもお願いします。今ここに書かれていることがよそに漏れたら残す。
Though unfortunately, the culprit likely already knew it.
以上かね。
Shizuru checked the clock.
そうですね。今後もお話しできる機会があるのでしたら。
考えておくことにしよ
Shizuda stood up.
う。隼人、
はい。
Muski's head shut up at the unexpected mention of his name.
久しぶりに飯を食うか。
Musky looked at
そ
me.
うしたらどうだ。親子で積もる話もあるだろうから。
He got up and gave Musky a tap on the
で
shoulder.
は、自分はこれで失礼します。
About to Shizuda before leaving him and Musky behind. Yeah, of course today he's gonna offer up Ayato. He's like, hey, if I sign off on this, clearly earn me some good favor. I'm just like, yeah, no, take my assistant by all means. I have no issues with it. I drove to Nakano after departing Hinagami Pharmaceuticals. The snow on the roads had mostly melted by then, meaning I didn't skid on them. Though I did run into a bit of trouble under those walkways in Shinjuku that didn't get sunlight. The hospital appeared to have reopened to outpatients today, but the place was practically deserted since it was a Saturday afternoon and all. So I have a car in the parking lot, parked in the farthest space away from the entrance, that is. It was a Nissan Austin that I'd never seen in the area. Someone was in the driver's seat, so I casually approached it, took a peek inside, and spotted two sketchy-looking men. They wore black business suits, but neither appeared comfortable in them. Everything about them down to their car seemed borrowed. Hoodlums, if I had to say. Suddenly the car took off as if they'd noticed me. What was that all about? Guess I should notify the hospital. The lobby was devoid of patients. A round New Year's rice cake sat atop the reception desk, though lacking the standard accompanying orange. For a moment, I wondered if said orange had fallen off and rolled away somewhere. Okay, snap out of it. You're here to talk to Kohata and not critique their decor. I hadn't called ahead or anything, so the plan was to stop by her office and see if she was in. Just pray to barge in on her getting dressed or some other such cliche.
どうかなさいましたか、時坂さん。
However, she ultimately turned out to simply be sitting behind her desk. Just to be clear, I most certainly hadn't gotten any hopes up. No way, not a chance.
明けましておめでとうございます。山内先生。
構いませんが、要件は何でしょうか。
ひながみ製薬をご存知ですよね。こちらと取引があるのでしたら教えてほしいことがあるのですが。
ひながみ製薬。確かに昔から取引はあるようですが。
文也さんなどは当園の親戚に当たりますからね。
はあ、私の担当課などでは患者さんに投与する風邪薬などがひながみさんのものですね。
Kohata retrieved a medicine bottle from the cupboard. The label proudly read Hinagami Pharmaceuticals.
でもこれは新薬というわけではなくて、よその会社さんでも同等のものが出ています。
昔からのつながりで納入されているといった感じですかね。
そうですね。近年は抗生新薬の新薬が多く開発されているそうですね。
Man, I love it when Reiji says exactly what I'm thinking.
専門医を紹介したいのですが。
いえ、それには及びませんよ。
I immediately refused, sensing her reluctance. The specialist she had in mind was likely our mutual acquaintance behind
わか
bars.
る範囲内で構いませんが、抗精神薬が最近は多くなっているのですか。
医薬品の開発は10年以上かかることはザラですから、最近といっても範囲は広いですが。
So in other words, even a newly released drug could have been in R&D before the war even
ひ
began.
ながみ製薬自体の評判はいかがですか。
評判ですか。
Kohata stroked her chin in contemplation.
接点があまりないからかもしれませんが、特に何かを聞いたということはありませんね。
そうですか。
No interactions likely meant nothing entering the rumor mill. Much as I hate to admit it, it's sounding more and more like my only option here is our friend in Yaginuma's cell. But getting him to talk is a major pain in the ass. Probably won't tell me anything unless I've figured out most of it out already.
そろそろよろしいですか。
ええ、お時間を取らせてしまい申し訳ありませんでした。
I remembered something just as I rose to leave.
先ほど外の駐車場で風亭の怪しい輩を見かけました。
Kohata cocked her head.
外来患者さんではありませんか。
だといいのですが。
It wasn't out of the question, of course. The way they'd appear to be scoping out the hospital didn't strike me as ordinary patient behavior.
一応院長には報告しておきますね。
ええ、よろしくお願いします。
I left the office, only to just as quickly notice an orange rolling down the hallway.
何をしているんだ。
Michiru, the culprit who'd rolled the orange like a bowling ball, was crouched down at the other end.
転ばせようと思った。
だったらバナナの皮だよな。
バナナは高いから。
まあ関税やら何やらで戦前に比べると随分高くなってるけどな。
Though I highly doubted she cared. Hell, I was boring myself with that tidbit. Mitsuru picked up the orange, took a seat on a bench, started peeling it,
はい。
and offered me the rind. Could I trip someone with this? Nah, the juices are drained, the rind's starting to dry. Probably could even trip a blind man. Just then a sneaking suspicion suddenly struck
この
me.
みかんどこにあったんだ？
落ちてた。
Mitsuru gestured to a spot on the floor. One that just happened to be right next to the reception
あ
desk.
そこから落ちたんじゃないか？
Pointed to the round New Year's rice cake decorating the desk.
うん。
Mitsuru nodded and popped a slice of orange into her
い
mouth.
や食べちゃダメだろう。
うん
口に入れたのを出すのはもっとダメだろ
Mitsuru simply sat back and moaned, taking no steps to remedy the
う。
situation.
まあ食べちゃえばいいんじゃないか？
Staff would probably have taken that down by Monday anyway.
うん。
Mitsuru got up with the orange in hand and marched over to the desk. Confused, I watched closely and saw her set a single slice of orange back atop the rice cake before returning to her seat.
いやそれ
ダメ？
ダメだろ。
そう。
Mitsuru turned to the rice cake, grabbed the orange slice, and started heading back, only to drop it on the floor.
あ、
After freezing for a beat, she picked up the slice and sauntered up to me, placing it in my hand.
あげる。
いや見ていたからな。
床に落ちただけで食べないのは飽食の証。
How could an explanation sound so right yet so wrong at the same time? Oh, whatever. I likely keep the floors clean, so I doubt I'll be keeling over from some infection in a few days or so. Stuck the slice in my mouth, not even bothering to remove the pith. It was still fairly sweet.
あげる。
Mitsuru shoved the rest of the orange in my hands. Seemed she hadn't even eaten most of it. In exchange, she took the orange rind and I tossed aside.
これならごまかせる？
It curled the rind into a ball until it was back in its original shape.
ごまかしちゃダメだろ。
I shook my head and ate the
中
orange.
身がないから形も悪いしな。皮をきれいに剥いたのは評価するが。
中身。
Mitsuru stared at the orange in my hand. Over half of it was already gone.
ねえキャロル、このおじさん食いしん坊ね。
Mitsuru talked to the stuffed rabbit sitting next to her. Oh, so this is my fault now.
中身がない。空っぽ。
She pressed down on her bandaged eye socket. I was saying something, but ultimately held my tongue.
おじさんも空っぽ？
I twitched. It had certainly come out of nowhere.
俺はいろいろと考えてることがあるからね。
それは頭の中。心の中は？
Mitsuru stared my way, almost like she was seeing right through me.
どうだろうね。
To say my heart was empty would be going too far, I felt. However, it was indeed true that I had had a hold there for nearly 2 years now. Maybe she'd picked up on that.
あ、小春ちゃん。
Mitsuru shoved the orange rind in my hand and got up.
時坂さん、まだいらしたんですか？
おじさんがお飾りのみかん食べちゃった。
いや俺は
Damn it, she's not wrong. Still felt like I'd been hoodwinked, though.
みかんでしたらたくさんありますから、いくらでもどうぞ。
All I could do was hang my head when faced with an exasperated Kohara. I love Michiru. Masaki waited in Hinagami Pharmaceuticals' reception room until Shizuru returned with a deliver man carrying food in a wooden box.
彼は仕事で出て行ったそうだ。
Oh, is that so? Shizuru sat across from Masaki. They took the food out of the box and set it on the table. The meal consisted of thick beef, white rice, miso soup, and pickled vegetables.
ビフテキは嫌いだったか？
そんなことはありません。
Masaki shook his head. Never seen meat so chunky before, so he was just worried if his stomach could take it. Masaki picked up a knife, secretly relieved that everything else was quite modest in comparison.
いただきます。
He began cutting up his beefsteak, figuring there was no need to hold back any longer. The knife sliced through it like butter, shockingly enough. It wasn't anything like sinew to get in the way, leaving him with bite-sized pieces in a flash. The mysterious animal meat he'd eaten during the war was mostly sinew and bone, so there hadn't been much to actually consume. Compared to that, this was heaven. Masaki set his knife down and ate with his chopsticks. The meat was so soft that he hardly even had to chew.
この店の肉は契約した農場で育てた牛だけを使っている。
Isn't that lovely? Shizuru explained the meal's origin, even though Masaki hadn't asked anything.
何代も同じ血統を掛け合わせ、領主であることを保っているそうだ。
そうですか。
Masaki wasn't all that interested. Shizura, perhaps picking up on that, spoke no further and let the meal proceed in silence. This looked absolutely bizarre to anyone who walked in right now. Father and son faced each other, neither saying a word. Perhaps things would have been different if Karen were present. But as it stood, this lunch meeting served no purpose whatsoever. After finishing his last radish, Masaki tried to leave.
Ayato.
However, Shizuru finally broke his silence as if he'd been waiting for that precise moment.
何ですか？
Masaki reluctantly sat back down.
つうか
Shizuru offered him a cigarette just then.
やらないので。
That was a lie. In truth, Masaki smoked once in a blue moon, but he didn't feel like taking one given by Shizuru.
そうか
Shizuru put the cigarette in his own mouth and instead lit it up. For a while, that flowed in the room with smoke and time. Masaki simply sat there in absolute silence, having lost his chance to leave.
お前の母親リカはミコだった
Caught off guard, Masaki struggled to process the words his father had exhaled alongside a puff of smoke.
言葉の通りだ雛神家は代々ミコを妻に迎えている
Yoshie Hutami had said the same thing over a decade ago. Masaki had dismissed it as a fantasy of hers as per Yu's suggestion, yet the truth had been there all along.
お前もそうなる予定だったもっとも肝心の相手が死んでしまってはどうすることもできないが
やはりさつきが巫女だったんですか？
雛神家の現当主としてその問いには答えることができない
ここへ来てまだそれですか？
そういうものだよしきたりとは
Shizuru took out another cigarette and lit it up.
巫女がいなくとも何が何でも血を受け継がねばならぬらしい
それで俺を結婚させようとしているんですか？
先ほども言った通り犠牲者が出てる以上この話を進めるわけにもいかない
Blew some smoke into the air.
さて俺もそろそろ時間だ
Shizuru stubbed out a cigarette and rose to his feet.
お前はあの探偵について仕事をしているのか
ええ。
そうか
Shizuru made his way to the door.
待ってください。
なんだ
上園さんはあなたが写っていた写真を俺に見せました。
He spoke of the photo that birthed this whole mess. It was after seeing it that Masaki had run away and Maya had been killed.
母親が持っていたのだろう渡した覚えはないが
そうですか。
また何かあれば訪ねてくるといいどうあろうと親子なのだから
Shizuru left the room with those words. The sky was darkening by the time I got home and parked the car. Alright, let's make one more stop before it gets too late. Moon World! Moon World! Moon World! Thought of a quick cup of coffee sounded very appealing at this hour. Also went to Moon World.
いらっしゃい。あら、時坂くん。
Moon World!
よコーヒーもらえるか
ええ、ちょっと待っててね。
I sat at the counter and regarded the cafe proper. Yukiko was inconspicuously seated by the wall. Her nose was stuck in a book. I left her alone, not wanting to bother her when she was so preoccupied.
最近毎日のように来ているのよ。
Kyoko smiled.
家で何かあったのか
Got my voice hushed. Situations such as that sounded to me like something had happened that made her want to avoid spending time at home.
そういうことはないわよ。いつも冬美さんが迎えに来るから。
だったらいいんだけどな
時坂くんは周りに気を回しすぎなのよ。
Yeah.
はい、コーヒー。
あ
I've probably been reading too much into that bunch outside the hospital, too. Suspecting everything was just the curse that came with being a detective. Not that I was proud of it, of course. I sipped my coffee. Bitterness stung my tongue and cleared my foggy brain. Afterward, I glanced back at Yukiko. Seeing her quietly reading in the corner of the cafe brought back memories of her, whether I wanted it to or not. Even I thought that was strange. After all, the two were hardly alike, apart from age and, appearance.
コーヒーのおかわり。はい、かしこまりました。
Kyoko picked up a pot of coffee and made a beeline for Yukiko. There was something they definitely didn't have in common. It was that she never got close to Kyoko the way Yukiko had.
時坂くん、おかわりは？
もう少ししたらもらうよ
I still had over half my coffee left after all.
じゃあ、これあげるわね。
Kyoko served me rice crackers on a saucer.
なんでせんべい
私のおやつだもの。
だったらお茶の方がいいな。
コーヒーにだって合うわよ。
Kirk pointed at Yukiko. The girl was reading a book in one hand while downing a rice cracker and coffee with the other.
まあいいけどな。
I wasn't going to look the gift horse in the mouth. It's probably better than sweet chocolate in this case. Nah. Nah. As a coffee enjoyer myself, I gotta tell you, nothing goes better than chocolate and coffee. Nothing. Oh. Honestly, just anything sweet, really, I'll take it. Fruity sweet doesn't go too well, doesn't go the best. But I'll still take that, but oh. A chocolate sweet, some kind of pastry, oh, fucking game over. I don't care how good these rice crackers are, nah, homie, that ain't. Don't tell you it's gonna go better than chocolate, it ain't. Chocolate top tier. Unless I've been to one of the crunchy rice crackers. Then I find it was miso flavored, and therefore salty. It was miso flavored. Has Toji been here?
お腹いっぱい。
Fuck off. Gone flopped face up onto the floor after downing her dessert tea.
食べた後すぐ横になっては行儀が悪いですよ。
Hell yeah,
ご飯ね
kill her, Yukari. Yukari piled their empty dishes in the wooden hangiri bowl as she chided Kohane. Fortunately, Reiji wasn't around to witness this desecration of his living room on account of having just returned to his own room.
残ったきゅうり食べていい？
I would make a joke about eating cucumber, but you don't deserve it.
どうぞ。海苔も残ってますよ。海苔だけじゃパサパサしてるからな。
Spider complained, Kohane wrapped a cucumber up in seaweed and started eating it.
ポポ。これってわふわ？何を言ってるかわかりませんよ。課題って終わってるって聞いたのよ。もともと写しに来たのですよね。まあ、そうなんだけどね。
God, you suck.
どこまで自分でやりましたか？数学の最初の2問は解いたわよ。
So only one more since New Year's.
その道、今からでは間に合わないでしょうね。
Yeah. You could have looked at the calendar. It was Saturday. The new semester started on Monday. Logistically, Kohane could probably copy everything if she spent the whole night on it. Knowing her, she wouldn't have the attention span to pull that off.
では、早速始めましょうか。
You could have grabbed the dishes and rose to her feet.
少し食休みいい？
Oh my god, you suck.
寝ないでくださいね。
After doing the dishes, you could have brought the radio into her room and started playing music as she read a book. Kohane was right next to her, frantically copying her homework.
できるだけ自分で考えながら書き写してくださいね。1192年に幕府が開かれたのは奈良幕府？
The only thing they have in common are giant Buddha statues.
鎌倉幕府ですよ。うん、知ってる。ここに書いてるもんね。
See, it's right here. Why would you ever say nada? Kohane paid no heed to Yukari's exasperation and hummed joyously as she copied her friend's homework.
ねえ、ゆかりっち。今度は何ですか？ゆかりっちってさ、好きな人とかいるの？
Now that Yukari hadn't seen coming.
ほら、お兄さんと一緒にいた男の人とか良さそうじゃない？
Yeah, he's also like 30. Alright? That was gross. Stop that.
まさきさんですか？
I'm not sure. Kohane had asked the same question before, but Yukari was still no closer to an answer. She never looked at him that way after all. Nor had her heart ever been blessed by the stirrings of love.
前にもさ、憧れていたお兄ちゃんがいたって話した
I
よ
don't know what
ね。
you're about to tell me, but I genuinely do not care.
ええ、あの時は言わなかったけど、そのお兄ちゃんってゆきこちゃんのお兄さんなんだよね。え？でもあの時確か
Yukiko claimed she didn't remember that part of her life, but no matter how blurry her memories were, the idea that she'd forgotten her own brother was utterly inconceivable.
昔はいろんなことがあったから忘れちゃいたいようなこともね。戦争ですか？そうなのかな。私もあんまり覚えちゃいないけど、孤児だった子がたくさん集められて生活してたのよ。
Wait. This is the first Yukari had heard of Kohane being an orphan. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, fuck, I didn't know she was an orphan. That doesn't make me feel sympathetic towards her at all, but you know.
ユキコちゃんとかお兄ちゃんとか他にも何人かいたけれど、みんな人に引き取られて離れ離れになっちゃったの。そんなことがあったのですか。
What does one say to that? Yeah, honestly. No good answer to that question. Those 4 words were all Yukari could manage.
だからお兄ちゃんのことをユキコちゃんが覚えてないってことは、その後何かあったのかなって。
Perhaps her mother knows something. However, Yukari didn't have the guts to ask Masaki Hara. She wasn't her brother, she was no detective. Plus, since Yukiko was her friend, she figured it'd be best to keep that to herself until Yukiko finally opened up.
ごめんね、おかしなこと聞かせちゃって。
Yeah, way to fucking go, Koane. God damn.
いえ、そんなことはありませんよ。
Had Yukiko been there and told Yukari herself, she probably would have thanked Yukiko for confiding in her. Since she'd only heard it from Kohane, Yukari felt nothing but guilt. She knew something about Yukiko that not even the girl herself knew, leaving Yukari at a loss. For she no longer had any idea how to interact with her, whether to act like nothing had changed or not. God damn it, Kohane, you just had to go and fuck up the vibes. Son of a bitch. Masaki walked to Kichiki Hospital from Nakano Station. There were hardly any cars in the parking lot, unsurprising considering that it was a Sunday morning. A 3-wheeled truck sputtering exhaust sat in the back, but that was about it. However, that didn't mean the hospital was deserted, of course. Nanako had said she was on break until the 4th, so this was the day she was due back. Masaki had some questions for her. Questions about Naori and the Hinigamis, mostly. As well as others he would have felt awkward asking in front of Naori. The hospital was as quiet as a morgue. A New Year's rice cake without an orange topping it sat on the reception desk. Nanako was nowhere to be seen. If Masaki had to guess, though, she was somewhere further inside.
あら、どうかしましたか、Masakiさん。
Suddenly, Masaki bumped into Kaharu right as he was sneaking a peek down the hallway.
山之内先生、沢城さんはどこにいらっしゃいますか？
沢城さんでしたら、この時間だと入院患者さんのところへ行っていると思いますよ。
そうですか。ありがとうございます。
Can't go bothering her while she's busy. May as well just wait in the lobby then. It was with that thought that Masaki took a seat on a nearby bench. While he waited, he pondered whether he should ask Nanako about the Blessed Congregation or Hitagata first. Since she was linked to both, she appeared deeply involved with a considerable number of aspects in this case. Yeah, I've noticed. And if he'd noticed that, Reiji must have as well. As such, he knew he needn't probe her too deeply. If anything, that would only heighten her guard and complicate further investigation. Still, it didn't mean he could just sit back and twiddle his thumbs either. After all, it didn't change that there were things he wanted to check with Nanako that he couldn't have asked his father. Such is why she was the one tasked with telling Masaki— shit, I accidentally pressed the button. Such is why she was the one tasked with telling Masaki about the whole marriage scheme, for starters. There were just so many things she'd done that, frankly, made no sense whatever to him. Such is how she'd subbed for Shizuru and accompanying Karen back to Hitagata for New Year's. Yeah, that was suspicious. She told Reiji it was because she owed Shizuru big time, but Masaki wasn't entirely convinced.
綾人君。
Masaki craned his head when he heard his real name. Nanako was there, walking his way.
七子さん。
However, Nanako interrupted him before he could ask her to call him Masaki instead.
綾人君、白崎さんを見なかった？
白崎さん。
She's probably talking about Michiru Shirosaki.
どうかしたんですか？
検温の時間なんだけど、病室にいないのよ。
Masaki couldn't help but find that ironic, considering how he'd never actually seen Michiru in her
そ
room.
の辺にいるんじゃないですか？
そう思って探しているんだけれど、ついさっきまで病室にいたのよ。
Nanako started scanning the area, so Masaki followed suit. Though he knew Nanako wouldn't have been so worried if that was all it took to find
ど
her.
こかの部屋にいるとかは？
そうね。もう少し探して。
It was then that a look of realization dawned on her face.
正木さんは一応外を探してもらえるかしら。勝手に出ていくということはないと思うけど。
This is a distraction. It's all a big distraction. How about you look for her outside? You go look for her outside. While you're up to something. You're up to something.
わかりました。
I suppose I'll just save my questions for later. Masaki got up and went outside.